Hello everybody, welcome back to Screenstars. I'm here today to bring you my review for the 2022 horror film Among the Living. A film that is written and directed by Rob Worsey, and it stars Dean Michael Gregory, George Newton, Melissa Worsey and Leon Worsey, who I can only presume are the children of the director Rob Worsey. Right, this film is... how can I put it? It's a zombie apocalypse type film. It's set in the near future. There's been some kind of pandemic. We don't get to see any of it. And we get to follow the brother and sister, Harry and Lily, travelling cross-country. And it's based in the UK, trying to survive, basically. We see early on that it's not easy. They're travelling across country. They're living in a tent, living from day to day, trying to stay alive. The best I can figure here with these creatures, zombies essentially is what they are. Any smell of blood, any scent of blood at all, and they're on you, these zombies. So you've got to make sure that you stay uninjured and you're not bleeding in any way, because it makes survival very, very difficult. Harry and Lily find a chap called Carl and a young boy called Tom, who he's looking after, and they all kind of agree to kind of stay together and survive. As you could imagine, this being what it is, things don't necessarily go according to plan. Right. What are my thoughts on Among the Living? Well, it's easy when you hear the premise of this film. It's quite easy to kind of roll your eyes and think, oh, it's another zombie film. And yes, there is that. But this one is surprisingly engaging, I suppose. And there's a few reasons for that. One of the reasons, I think, is the choice of actors here. I think Dean Michael Gregory is Harry, who plays like the older brother to Lily. I think he's from Coronation Street, or I think he's been in Coronation Street, this actor. I don't know much about him, but he does a fine job here of portraying this protective older brother of his younger sister, not prepared to take risks and will do what he needs to do to survive, sort of thing. And he portrays that particularly well. There's a certain level of vulnerability to him, but there's also another level of survival instinct that has got in him, and he portrays that role particularly well, and I thought he did a fine job. As I thought Melissa Worsey did as his younger sister. Now, obviously, she's not a veteran actress, that's fairly clear, but I think she does a decent job here of portraying this role. There are a couple of moments in the film, along with her, I'm assuming it's her brother Leon, where you can see their acting skill is not of a standard, where you could, wave a flag about it or anything. But I think they both do a decent job. It's not easy for child actors to get into the industry, and I think these do a decent job. And I think that's one of the reasons. When I was watching this, I didn't realise they were, well, I'm assuming they're brother and sister. And the interactions they have with each other on screen in the film felt quite natural to me. And there's a reason behind that, because obviously they're related in real life. There's also this real sense of threat, not only from the zombies in the world, but this other character, Carl. There's this real sense of unease between them. Harry doesn't trust this guy, rightfully so, and Carl doesn't trust Harry. So there's this almost like level of unease there, and something is ticking away in the background, and it's going to kind of go off eventually, which it does in its own way. So you never really feel comfortable, even though they might be safe in the short term. You never feel comfortable that they're overly safe. And I thought, even though this is low budget film, I thought it was nicely filmed. There's some pretty scenery, because it's like in the English countryside and stuff. And I thought it was of a decent quality, to say it's low budget. The threat here in regards to the zombies, with it being low budget, obviously they couldn't have crowds and crowds of zombies, people in zombie makeup, so they have to kind of make them a threat. When these zombies turn up, you have to feel afraid of them. And I thought the film did a decent job of expressing that. As I mentioned, any drop of blood and you are immediately on these zombies' radar. They'll be on you very, very quickly. You can smell it from miles away. And some of them feel like a real threat. There's one in particular that keeps turning up like a bad penny in this film. that just feels quite menacing and ferocious and feral. And I thought the film did a decent job of making these zombies feel like a real threat. And the effects were pretty decent. Nothing over the top, pale skin, darkened eyes and blood everywhere. I thought it did a decent job of portraying them in the way that they should be portrayed. And there's also an element of not just the zombies here in this film being a threat, but there's other human characters in this film that would be, that are also portrayed as being a threat. So the film isn't chock full of characters. It is quite small in its scale, but I think it does deliver that message on all levels that it's trying to get across. But I do think ultimately the budget does kind of let it down, which is a real shame. But I got a real sense of watching this of like a cross between The Last of Us and 28 Days Later. There's little elements of both them properties kind of sewn into this film in a small way. So as zombie films go, and it is a zombie film, I've seen far worse with bigger budgets, if I'm being particularly honest. I don't think this is particularly memorable or special, and I think some people have a problem with the slow pace, because it is quite slow paced. But I thought it did a pretty good job of delivering what it wanted to do and try and please the audience. So yeah, I'm going to give it a 5 out of 10. I do think it deserved a 5 out of 10. I've seen certainly far worse, as I've mentioned, on a bigger budget. So yeah, check it out if you get the opportunity. Among the Living, and I will of course be back with plenty more reviews and content on the channel very, very soon.